Hello and welcome to the Connection Audit. We are your hosts, Kirsten and Blake. Today we'll take a clear-eyed look at modern relationships, what's changed and why, and what truly helps people connect. We'll explore ethical non-monogamy, or E&M, in a balanced and informed way, unlike the sensationalism mainstream media want to portray it as. We'll cover topics such as consent, boundaries, clear communication, the fear of rejection, and how to handle feelings with skills most of us were never taught.
And we'll share how the Blossom Society, an E&M community, is building a platform where education comes before access, where women are sovereign, and whilst TBS focuses the E&M community, the support and guidance being designed by them really speaks to anyone who wants to connect better and maintain a healthy, honest relationship with tools to maintain stronger, deeper roots. So, if you're done with chaos and ready for clarity, you're in the right place.
Here's what we do. In each episode, we run an audit not of people, but of patterns. The stuff that quietly shapes how we date, love, and relate.
First, we audit the culture, the norms, the myths, and the unspoken rules that keep everyone performing and nobody actually connecting.
Then we audit the behavior, what shows up in messages, in boundaries, in conflict, and in consent. Those micro choices that either build trust or erode it.
And finally, we audit the solution for practical tools you can actually use. Clearer language, better agreements, stronger repair, and the kind of emotional skills that should have been taught years ago.
We'll be respectful, we'll be honest, we'll keep it human. And yes, there may be the occasional gentle laugh, because sometimes the only thing more exhausting than modern dating is pretending it isn't exhausting.
No shaming, no grandstanding, just clarity, good standards, and a way forward whether you're exploring E&M, rebuilding trust, or simply trying to connect with more integrity.
And we'll try to leave you with 3 takeaways. You'll learn how to spot the cultural scripts that quietly sabotage connection and how to step out of them.
2, you'll get clearer behaviors to aim for around consent, boundaries, communication, and repair without turning relationships into a minefield.
And takeaway 3, you'll leave with practical tools you can try immediately, so connection becomes something you can build, not something you just hope for.
So, diving right into the culture aspect.
Yeah.
If we really want to understand why so many of us feel just completely burnt out by dating, or even, by our long-term relationships, we have to talk about the environment we're operating in.
Right, the water we're swimming in.
Exactly. There's this psychological concept that really frames everything we're seeing today. It's called the golden cage.
The golden cage.
Yeah, and I want you to think about your own life for a second. Have you ever had that heavy, sinking feeling where, on paper, you're making all your own choices, but deep down you realize your choices were basically orchestrated for you?
Like they were handed down by a society that existed way before you were even born.
Precisely. Handed down and enforced.
Yeah.
I want to pause on that phrase, though, the golden cage, because I know it sounds almost dramatic.
It does a bit.
But the reality of it is incredibly subtle. From a psychological standpoint, we're talking about a high-comfort, high-conformity environment.
Okay, so break that down for us. What makes it golden?
The golden part is the comfort. If you follow the rules of the cage, your life appears very safe. You're respectable. Your parents are proud of your relationship milestones.
You got the house, the ring, the shared bank account.
Right. Your friends understand your life choices perfectly. Society essentially pats you on the back and gives you this stamp of approval. But the cage part, that's the tax you pay for the approval.
And the tax is your authenticity.
Exactly. The tax is your authenticity.
Wait, so when you say high comfort, high conformity, are you saying people actually want to be in this cage? Because, it sounds miserable to trade your actual self for just, societal approval.
Well, that's the trick of it, isn't it? It doesn't feel miserable at first. It feels safe. The implicit deal you make with the culture is, I can choose as long as I choose what is acceptable. It's comfort laced with a very specific, invisible constraint. You're allowed to decorate the inside of your cage however you want, but you cannot leave it.
It's wild how we just accept those constraints as truth. It's not like we walk around feeling like actual prisoners. The rules don't look like rules. They look like stories.
Yes, stories.
They're the default settings of life. We
Yeah.
inherit them from romantic comedies we watched when we were 12, from offhand comments our parents made at the dinner table, from the way couples are portrayed on social media.
Constant reinforcement.
Right. We absorb these narratives without ever stopping to ask, hold on, do I actually endorse this?
Internalization is powerful. The invisible governance of these scripts works so flawlessly because the calls are coming from inside the house.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Over time, we stop seeing society's rules as external demands, and we start feeling like they are our own moral compass.
Yeah.
We police ourselves. So let's actually name the bars of this cage.
Right.
What are the specific scripts keeping people locked in?
Let's do it.
First up, we have gender scripts. These are the heavy, unspoken dictates about who initiates contact, who sets the pace of intimacy, who carries the emotional risk, and frankly, who is allowed to have desire.
Let's ground that in reality for a second. What does that actually look like on say, a Friday night?
Paint the picture.
Okay, imagine a hypothetical couple, David and Elena, going on a third date. The gender scripts are literally sitting right there at the table with them. David is culturally scripted to be the pursuer. The pressure on him is immense.
It really is.
The script says he has to be confident, he has to escalate the physical intimacy, he has to make the moves. If he hesitates, the script tells him he's weak or lacking confidence. He isn't allowed to be vulnerable or uncertain.
And across the table, Elena is operating under the gatekeeper script. She's been taught her whole life that her value lies in managing someone else's pursuit.
Managing the pursuit, exactly.
The culture tells her that her own active, raw desire is somehow dangerous or unseemly. So instead of tuning into her own body and asking, what do I want right now, she's entirely focused on managing David's ego.
Yeah.
She's measuring how much she should yield versus how much she should defend.
It turns intimacy into a negotiation of power. It's pressure versus defense. It's David pushing against a boundary to prove his masculinity, and Elena managing that push to preserve her respectability.
Where in that dynamic is there any room for two humans simply collaborating on a shared experience?
There isn't any. It's completely scripted.
And then, layer right on top of those gender scripts, we have relational scripts. This is where we need to talk about the default cultural assumption that monogamy is the sole virtue in relationships.
It's a sole virtue.
Right, and that anything else is deviance, immaturity, or a failure to fully commit. The script says that if you truly love someone, you will never even have a fleeting thought about another person, and if you do, your relationship is fundamentally broken.
I want to be incredibly clear here because I know this is a sensitive topic for a lot of people. The issue we are auditing today is not monogamy itself.
No, absolutely not.
Monogamy is a beautiful, valid, and fulfilling structure for millions of people. The issue is unconscious monogamy.
Yes, unconscious monogamy.
It's choosing monogamy simply because you feel you have to, rather than because you genuinely want to. If you enter into exclusivity because the script told you that is the only way to be a good partner, and you suppress your own natural curiosities out of fear, you're locked in the cage.
It's the difference between an active, enthusiastic choice and a default setting.
Exactly. Which brings us to the promise we made in the intro to discuss ethical non-monogamy, or ENM.
Right.
We have to address how the mainstream media sensationalizes this because it directly feeds into the relational scripts that keep people in the cage. When television shows or movies portray non-monogamy, what do they usually show?
Oh, it's always neon lights, underground clubs, massive dramatic portrayals, wild parties, and people throwing caution to the wind. It's portrayed as this hypersexualized free-for-all where nobody have any feelings and everyone is just acting on pure impulse. It's designed purely for shock value.
Right. It's treated as a plot device for chaos.
Yeah.
But the reality of healthy, functioning ENM communities is almost comically different from that.
It really is.
The ethical part of ethical non-monogamy is incredibly demanding. If you look at people who practice this successfully, it's not a free-for-all. It is highly structured.
Highly.
It involves shared Google Calendars, 4-hour conversations, sitting at a kitchen table discussing emotional bandwidth, negotiating who buys the groceries on Tuesday, and a level of continuous consent and boundary setting that would exhaust most people.
It is the absolute opposite of chaos. It's hyper-communication. But because the culture only shows the sensationalized version, people in mainstream relationships look at it and say, well, I don't want chaos, so I must stick to the strict monogamy script, even if it feels a little tight.
The media portrayal actively reinforces the golden cage by making the alternative look dangerous.
Exactly. And what enforces the rules of the cage when people inevitably start to feel things that fall outside those rigid scripts?
Shame.
Yes, shame. That is where the third set of bars comes in. Shame scripts. Shame is the alarm system of the golden cage.
The alarm system, I like that.
It is that internal voice whispering, good people don't want that, or nice women don't say yes to this, or real men don't need reassurance.
Shame is so incredibly isolating. The moment you have a fantasy, a desire, or a need that contradicts the inherited script, Shame rushes in to tell you that you are uniquely broken.
Uniquely broken.
It tells you that if your partner or your friends found out what you actually wanted, you'd be rejected. You'd be cast out of the tribe.
Which leads directly into the final set of scripts.
Yeah.
Status scripts. This is the exhausting daily work of reputation management.
Oh, the reputation management.
It is the fear of judgment. You end up building a persona that is entirely focused on maintaining your social standing rather than fostering genuine connection.
Like staying in an unhappy dynamic because we look so good together on Instagram.
Exactly. Or avoiding a difficult conversation with your partner because you are terrified of rocking the boat and ruining the image of the perfect couple.
But if that is the culture we're marinating in, how does that actually show up when we are living our daily lives?
Right. Let's look at the behavior.
The culture promises us that if we follow these scripts, if we manage our status, if we listen to the shame, we'll be safe and loved. But what we're actually seeing is people following the rules perfectly, doing everything right, and still feeling completely disconnected and unseen by the person lying right next to them in bed.
It takes a massive toll on our behavior. If the culture builds the cage, our daily actions are what keep the door locked.
Wow. Yeah.
When you operate on these inherited scripts instead of your own agency, the downstream effects are universally exhausting. It leads to disconnection, resentment, burnout, and what we call modern connection fatigue.
Let's outline the 4 behavioral symptoms of living in the golden cage. The first symptom is that desire becomes confusing, or worse, completely outsourced.
Outsourced desire.
Yeah, when you spend years filtering your wants through the lens of what is socially acceptable, you eventually lose contact with your own internal compass.
I see this constantly. People lose touch with their own yes, no, or maybe. If I ask someone, what do you desire in a partner, or what do you want your physical intimacy to look like, they often freeze.
They just don't know.
They have spent a lifetime letting the culture or their previous partners tell them what they should want.
We all know the cool girl trope. The woman who pretends she loves watching sports all weekend, eating chili dogs, never getting mad, and wanting exactly whatever her partner wants.
The ultimate chameleon.
Right. She suppresses her own desires so deeply that if you asked her what she actually wanted for dinner, she wouldn't know. The script says you should want a romantic, candlelit dinner and a very specific sequence of physical events afterward. So you try your hardest to want that, even if what you genuinely crave is something entirely different. You look to movies, to your friends, or to your partner to signal what is appropriate to want.
The psychological reality here is profoundly sad. It's the feeling of, I don't know what I want, but I know what I'm supposed to want.
That's a heavy burden to carry.
And when you don't know what you want, you cannot ask for it. Which pulls us right into the second symptom. Intimacy becomes a performance.
A performance.
When connection is governed by scripts, it turns into role play. We put on masks to survive and to remain acceptable.
We have all worn these masks. There's the low-maintenance partner who pretends they never get jealous, never need reassurance, and never feel insecure.
Oh, the low-maintenance trap.
You're sitting there pretending you don't care that they haven't texted back in 3 days, telling your friends, oh, I'm just so chill, while internally you're completely spiraling.
Doing the whole swans gliding on the water thing.
Exactly. Frantically paddling underneath. Then there is the dominant provider mask. The person who pretends they are never overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility and never need to be taken care of.
We perform the role because the script dictates that this is how we keep the relationship secure. But playing a character 24/7 is exhausting.
Beyond exhausting.
And more importantly, a character cannot experience true intimacy. You might be physically close to someone, you might share a bank account, but they're connecting with the mask. They aren't connecting with you. Genuine intimacy demands vulnerability, and vulnerability is exactly what the golden cage prevents.
It's a survival tactic that fundamentally crushes connection. And that brings us to the third symptom. When your relationship is built on compliance, truth becomes incredibly expensive.
So expensive.
Honesty starts to feel like a catastrophic risk. If you speak your truth, if you admit that you are struggling with the monogamy script or that you have a desire that falls outside the norm or even just that you are unhappy with how you spend your weekends, you risk losing your standing in the relationship.
So what is the behavioral result? People engage in avoidance. They omit the truth.
They hide.
Sometimes they end up living double lives, either literally or emotionally. You stay quiet when your boundaries are crossed because speaking up feels like making a fuss. The cost of truth is set so high by the culture that people simply stop paying it.
They choose the slow, quiet erosion of secret resentment over the sharp, immediate pain of potential rejection.
Exactly. And nowhere is this clearer or more dangerous than in the fourth symptom. Consent gets muddied by obligation.
This is a huge focal point for our conversation today.
It is. When we live in the cage, people constantly confuse consent with compliance. True consent requires total freedom, but inside the scripts of the cage, the freedom to say no is heavily penalized.
Let's go back to our hypothetical couple, David and Elena, on that third date. The date is winding down. They're standing at her front door. The script says that because David paid for dinner and drove her home, he should be invited up.
The transaction script.
Yes. Elena doesn't really want to invite him up. She's tired, she has an early meeting, and she just isn't feeling that spark tonight. But the script in her head says, if you say no, you'll make it awkward, he'll feel rejected, he might get angry. You don't want to be seen as a tease.
So what does she do?
She smiles and says, do you want to come up for a drink?
She consented verbally, but she complied socially. She said yes, but she did not feel free to say no.
That's the crux of it right there.
Building a relationship on compliance is like building a house on sand. It might look structurally sound for a few months, maybe even a few years, but it lacks integrity. When a culture equates saying no with being cruel, rejecting, or ungrateful, it coerces people into abandoning their own boundaries just to maintain the comfort of the other person.
I want to push on that because we have to shine a light on how this plays out systematically regarding the unequal risk load.
Let's get into it.
In mainstream, what we might call low-friction dating environments, think of the endless swiping apps where anyone can create a profile in 2 minutes and message 100 people with zero effort. The burden of this blurred consent does not fall equally.
Not at all.
Women overwhelmingly pay the price in those environments. They carry the burden of assessing physical safety, managing a barrage of unwanted attention, and performing the exhausting emotional labor of letting people down gently to avoid aggressive or dangerous reactions.
It's a full-time job.
The inherited scripts essentially enable entitlement in these low-friction spaces. They teach one group that their access to connection should be frictionless and immediate, and they teach another group that their boundaries are just negotiable obstacles.
That environment is essentially recreating the worst parts of the golden cage on a digital scale. It rewards impulse, performativity, and boundary pushing.
It really does.
It tells people that connection is a commodity you consume, rather than an experience you co-create with respect. When the friction to connect is too low, the quality of behavior plummets. It leaves everyone feeling commodified, defensive, and exhausted.
Okay, so we have audited the culture and seen the invisible bars of the cage. We have audited the behavior and seen the exhaustion, the resentment, and the muddied consent it causes. Now we need to audit the solution.
Way out.
How do we actually break out of this? How do we move from a life of quiet, simmering compliance to a life of authentic connection?
The antidote to the golden cage is a concept we call earned agency. We need to define what freedom actually looks like in a healthy relational context.
Or earned agency.
Because true free will, when it involves other people, is not just do whatever you want whenever you want. Doing whatever you want without regard for the impact on others just leads to chaos, hurt, and a different, much messier kind of disconnection. True freedom is earned agency.
I love this framework. Earned agency breaks down into 3 core components. First, there is self-knowledge. You cannot have agency if you don't know what you want. This means doing the hard, quiet, internal work to accurately name your actual needs, your desires, and your limits, stripping away all those shoulds you inherited from the culture.
You have to find your own baseline.
Second, there is self-authorship. This is the ability to make choices based on that self-knowledge without needing society's permission or approval. It is standing in your truth and saying, this is what I want, and I do not need a societal script to validate it.
And the third component, which anchors the entire concept and prevents it from just being selfishness, is relational responsibility.
That's the key.
Your freedom is always bounded by your respect for the autonomy of others. Earned agency means knowing that your desires are valid, but you do not have an automatic right to fulfill them with anyone else without their clear, enthusiastic agreement.
Right, it's a two-way street.
It requires what we call consent fluency. You have to be able to invite someone in, negotiate the terms, pause when things get muddy, repair when things go wrong, and, most critically, accept a no cleanly without making the other person suffer for it.
This is where we want to bring in the blueprint created by the Blossom Society, or TBS. What is so compelling about their approach is how they design for earned agency in a practical, systemic way.
They've really operationalized it.
Remember how we just talked about mainstream culture rewarding impulse through low friction on swipe apps? TBS applies the exact opposite principle. They use what they call protective friction.
Protective friction is a brilliant concept. Instead of making it as easy as possible to connect, which lowers the behavioral bar to the floor, they make you earn the right to connect by demonstrating emotional literacy.
Growth before access?
Exactly. The core philosophy is growth before access. You don't just download an app, upload a gem selfie, and immediately get to message people. Emotional literacy is the entry ticket. You have to demonstrate that you actually understand boundaries, consent, and respect before you are allowed into the community. It changes the person before the person is allowed to interact with the culture.
Think about how radical that is compared to the default scripts. It stops the automaticity of bad behavior right at the door. And the second core pillar of their blueprint is women first, always.
A crucial pillar.
In a culture where women have historically carried that unequal risk load we talked about, giving women control over visibility and pacing fundamentally shifts the baseline of behavior. When women control the tone and everyone else is expected to rise to meet it, it teaches the entire ecosystem that autonomy and safety are the normal baseline, not some exceptional VIP feature.
It is an environment actively designed to dismantle the golden cage at the point of entry.
But the beauty of this is that you do not need to be on a specific platform to start using these principles in your own life today.
Not at all. These are universal tools.
The concepts behind earned agency translate directly into everyday actions, whether you are single, married for 20 years, or exploring non-monogamy. To help with that, we are going to walk you through a practical toolkit adapted from TBS's Escaping the Golden Page framework, which they call the Tool Shed Curriculum.
Let's open the shed.
There are 6 practical tools you can start using tonight to step out of the cage and build stronger, more honest connections. Tool number 1 is what we call scripts versus self.
Scripts versus self.
This is all about identifying the invisible rules governing your life. The challenge for you listening is to sit down with a piece of paper and identify 3 inherited rules about love, intimacy, or gender that you carry around with you.
Like a good partner never finds anyone else attractive.
Yes. Or men shouldn't show weakness. Or women shouldn't make the first move. Write them down, stare at them, and then ask yourself a very simple, radical question. Do I actually endorse this?
It is amazing what happens when you externalize those scripts. Let's say David writes down, I must always be the one to escalate physical intimacy. When he looks at it on paper, it looks ridiculous.
It loses its power.
He realizes it isn't a fundamental truth of the universe. It is just a story someone else made up. Naming the script reduces the shame associated with breaking it. If David realizes he doesn't endorse that script, he can consciously decide to write a new one, maybe one that says, I prefer it when my partner and I take turns initiating.
Tool number 2 is spotting the cost of compliance. This is an audit of your daily behavior. Over the next week, I want you to pay attention to where you say yes out of a feeling of obligation rather than a feeling of freedom.
The obligatory yes.
Where do you agree to weekend plans with your partner's family that you secretly resent? Where do you go along with a physical interaction because it feels easier than stopping it? And conversely, where do you hide the truth to keep the peace?
The goal here is not to immediately blow up your life and start shouting no at everyone. The goal is simply awareness.
Just noticing it.
You cannot fix a dynamic you cannot see. When you start noticing the micro moments where you abandon your truth to comply with the cage, you will start to see the emotional toll it takes on you. You will realize that the peace you are keeping by staying silent is actually just a down payment on future resentment.
Which brings us to tool number 3, and this is a massive one, the consent upgrade. We need to move our understanding of consent far beyond mere permission or the absence of a no.
The absence of a no is not a yes.
The gold standard for true conscious consent has 4 absolute requirements. It must be enthusiastic, reversible, informed, and specific.
Let's break those down. Enthusiastic means it is a clear, active desire. It's not a sigh and a fine, I guess so. Reluctant compliance is not consent.
Right. Reversible means the yes you gave at 8 p.m. can be withdrawn at 8:30 p.m.
And that withdrawal must be respected instantly and cleanly, without a sigh, a roll of the eyes, or an argument.
Informed means neither person is hiding crucial information, like sexual health status or relationship status that would change the other's decision.
And specific means saying yes to one act does not automatically imply yes to all acts.
The practical skill here, the real action item, is learning how to ask, how to pause, And most importantly, how to accept a no cleanly. Let's go back to David and Elena at the door. If David asks Elena to come up and she uses her earned agency to say, "I've had a wonderful time, but I'm going to head home tonight," how David reacts in that split second defines his emotional maturity.
Right. If he is practicing the consent upgrade, he accepts it without bargaining. He doesn't say, "Are you sure?" Just for one drink. He doesn't pout. He doesn't get defensive or suddenly turn cold.
He just accepts it.
He says, "I understand. To get home safe, I'd love to see you again." A clean acceptance of a no proves that you value their agency more than your own immediate gratification. It builds immense trust.
Tool number 4 is reframing boundaries as care. In the golden cage, boundaries are often viewed as punishments or walls meant to keep people out. We are taught by the culture that if you really love someone, you should have no boundaries with them, you should share everything, be available all the time.
An incredibly destructive myth.
We need to frame limits not as punishments, but as the very things that protect a connection.
Think of a boundary as simply the line where I end and you begin. It is the instruction manual for how to love me without hurting me. If I do not give you my boundaries, I am setting you up to fail.
The instruction manual, I love that.
The tool here is learning to state your non-negotiables in plain, kind language. It is saying, "I love spending time with you, but I need an hour to myself after work to decompress before we engage in conversation."
That isn't a rejection, that is an invitation to connect successfully. It takes the guesswork out of intimacy. If Elena tells David, "I prefer not to text during the workday because I need to focus, but I'd love a phone call," at 7 p.m., she has given him the instruction manual. She hasn't pushed him away. She has told him exactly how to succeed with her.
Tool number 5 is repair and reconsent. Here is a reality check. No matter how much emotional literacy you have, no matter how many deep dives you listen to, conflict will happen.
It's inevitable.
You will misunderstand each other. A boundary will be accidentally crossed. Someone's tone will be misinterpreted. The inherited script tells us that conflict is a sign the relationship is failing or that you are incompatible. But the real measure of a healthy connection is not the absence of rupture. It is the speed and the quality of the repair.
The tool is how you handle it when things inevitably go wrong. It involves a fast apology that takes accountability without making excuses. It's not, "I'm sorry you felt that way."
Oh, the worst apology.
It's, "I'm sorry I raised my voice, that was out of line." Then it involves recalibration, asking, "How do we adjust our behavior so this doesn't happen again?" And finally, it involves aftercare, checking in on the other person's emotional state after the conflict is resolved to ensure they feel safe again. Repairing quickly and re-entering the dynamic safely replaces defensiveness with curiosity.
And finally, tool number 6, agreements that live. Inside the cage, relationships are governed by static, rigid rules that are assumed on day one and never spoken of again. We are exclusive, we will move in together, we will get married, we will never change.
But human beings change. Circumstances change. Desires evolve over a lifetime. We need to move away from unspoken, static rules to explicit, living agreements.
A living agreement is an understanding between two people that includes a regular view cadence. It is sitting down and saying, "This is how we are structuring our relationship right now, but let's check in on the first Sunday of every month to see if this is still working for both of us."
It builds change management into the relationship.
It acknowledges that what worked at year 1 might not work at year 5, and that is completely okay.
It prevents the silent buildup of resentment. The goal is to ensure that both people are actively choosing the structure over and over again.
Because as the ethos goes, to blossom is not to love many, it is to love consciously.
Love consciously.
That is the ultimate takeaway. Conscious choice over automatic compliance. When you apply these tools, when you question your scripts, audit your compliance, upgrade your consent, set boundaries as care, master repair, and create living agreements, you are building the skills required for a connection that actually sustains you. You are stepping out of the cage and into the open air.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to think about on your own. If you woke up tomorrow morning and every single societal expectation about relationships completely vanished, no judgment, no scripts, no shame, what is the very first thing you would change about how you love and connect with others?
That is a great question to sit with.
As promised, here are the 3 biggest takeaways from our audit today. Takeaway 1, regarding the culture. You learned how to spot the golden cage, the inherited social scripts about gender, monogamy, and shame that quietly dictate your choices. Acknowledging that these are just stories, not absolute rules, is the first step to stepping out of them and reducing the shame you might feel about your authentic desires.
Takeaway 2, regarding the behavior. We outline the clear behaviors to aim for, specifically shifting from compliance to true consent. We saw how acting out of obligation muddies intimacy, and how replacing that with earned agency, where you accept a clean no without bargaining and state your boundaries clearly, keeps relationships from becoming a minefield.
And takeaway 3, regarding the solution. You now have practical tools you can try immediately. Whether it's doing a scripts versus self-check, practicing the consent upgrade, making it enthusiastic, reversible, informed, and specific, or focusing on fast repair after a misunderstanding. Connection isn't just luck, it's a skill you can build through these micro choices.
Really powerful tools.
Thanks for listening to the Connection Audit, where we hope we've helped you uncover new skills, a deeper understanding around connecting with other people, and give you the courage to be honest with yourself, your partner, and those people you connect with.
And our only ask is, if you know one person who you feel would benefit from listening to our conversation, please mention the Connection Audit and point them in our direction. Let's start a conversation about how we can build better connections. And if you have any questions, a theme, or a topic you'd like us to cover, please give us a like, leave a comment, and we'll get it scheduled into the running order.
Be kind to yourself.
Until next time, bless the scrolling.
Scrolling.